If it seems like every other reel features one or more half-naked 20-something girls shaking what their mamas gave them, you might just be a stage 1 gooner. But this isn't just about spicy sites being more accessible than ever. This is now about the safe for work content that we consume every day.
So yeah, let's talk about one of the biggest problems in modern history, gooning. Originally, this term was about addiction to pornography. Gooning is basically when you delay gratification before you finish. Reportedly, people are bragging about having done this for hours at a time. But as that girl said, this is not just about not safe for work content that people do this with. This delayed gratification loop is actually the business strategy for many different companies, one of them being social media.
What our brains actually want is satisfaction, but all social media seems to give us is a loop of desire with no end in sight. Short-form content is engineered to maximize wanting while minimizing satisfaction. So you're in a perpetual state of almost satisfied, almost fulfilled, but you never really get there. So you keep scrolling.
What she's saying is that social media websites are specifically engineered to make you an addict. I'm sure that's not a shock to most people these days, but I think people are less aware of all the other things that are designed with this same philosophy. For example, have you ever wondered why you can eat a ton of food and not feel satisfied, or how you can eat something and be more hungry afterward? A lot of that is because the people who made cigarettes addictive partnered with ultra-processed food companies and did a bunch of science experiments to make food super addictive. This strategy is being repeated in industry after industry, and their goal is to do as much as possible to put you in an addictive trance so that your engagement with their product will increase exponentially.
The key here is the trance-like state. People describe losing track of time, being completely absorbed, chasing that next hit without ever quite reaching satisfaction. It's a loop, an endless dopamine-fueled loop. But here's the twist. That same physiological loop, that trance-like state, is baked into our short-form media feed, even without us going to the hub. Have you ever opened TikTok or Instagram Reels just for a second, and then suddenly it's 45 minutes later and you don't even remember what you watched? That's the goon state, just with your clothes on and in public.
The worst thing about this trance state is that you may think you're relaxing, but because your experience doesn't end in mental satisfaction or regular intervals of it, you actually come out feeling mentally drained and unwilling to do anything. So you move on to the easiest thing, which is what you were just doing, and that's how you get 12-hour goon cycles. Like I said, this is the business strategy of numerous companies, and personally, I think it's one of the primary things that's ruining people's lives and making society worse. The unfortunate reality is that it's far easier to throw you into this addictive trance than it is to create a product that's actually satisfying. And as long as these companies still make money, they don't care how many people they're using scientific research on to turn them into degenerates for profit, because they'll get all the monetary benefit in the present moment, and they won't be alive to see the downstream negative consequences that it will have on the culture.
In most people, I'll be long gone, put it like that.
Like I said, there are many industries that do this. The food industry, tobacco, credit cards, gambling, social media, and for the purposes of this video, the gaming industry. One of the ways they do this is by dopamine hacking you. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipation, and if they can keep you in anticipation, you will spend shitloads of time and money on their product.
These methods of providing content are designed with something very important in mind: variable reward schedules. If you've had even a basic psychology class, you'll know that B.F. Skinner figured this out with pigeons in the 1950s. If you reward a behavior randomly, sometimes yes, sometimes no, the behavior becomes incredibly persistent. Slot machines use this, social media uses this. Every swipe might be the one, the perfect video, the perfect thirst trap, the perfect dopamine hit. So you keep swiping.
One of the ways that video games do this is with loot boxes. They're randomly rewarding you to get the persistent behavior of you buying more loot boxes. And of course, the first hit is always free, which is how you get people spending like $30,000 on a free game. I mean, this is totally gambling, right? Wait, I'm sorry. Surprise mechanics.
Do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
The fact that this hearing was 6 years ago and loot boxes are still legal is insane to me. Clearly it's gambling for children. And there are a number of anti-consumer things that gaming companies do on a regular basis that just need to be legislated away, like having 5 in-game currencies so they can distract you from how much money you're actually spending on cosmetics and XP boosts.
Digital currency is bullshit. It's intentionally a scam. It's made to scam you. It's made so you waste your money. That's what it does. A lot of these companies make a bunch of money because they're able to hoodwink stupid kids into spending their parents' money. This is a predatory system. It's based off of something that shouldn't be happening. It's fundamentally unethical, and there should be laws and regulations that keep it in check.
Absolutely, these things need to be outlawed. Not only does it have the effect of hiding how much real money you're spending, but they also sell it in bundles that don't reflect the prices of the items that you're trying to buy. So if an item is $20, you might have to spend $25 to get enough in-game cash to buy it. That's called a scam.
You can only buy some tokens in massive bundles. Bundles that don't match the price of the product you're trying to buy.
And also, it's very important that the big difference between this and, let's say, buying cigarettes, for example, is that when you're buying cigarettes, you know what you're buying, and it's that simple. When you're buying this stuff, you're going through multiple levels of intentional obfuscation in order to confuse you about how much money you're spending. That is bad faith, unethical business.
Now, I have no problem with online games selling cosmetics. If they want to do that instead of charging a monthly subscription to keep the servers running, then that's fine. But the problem is the anti-consumer and sleazy ways that they do it, particularly when these games are marketed at children. It's a little scummy when all these games have a battle pass and daily challenges, not to enhance the gameplay, but to give you little chores to do every day so that you remain exposed and addicted to the game. And if you don't do these chores, then you risk missing out on a special costume for your favorite hero that's only available for this season. I mean, if we're talking about a healthy interaction with a video game, daily challenges are like expecting an alcoholic to quit when his challenge is to go to a wine tasting. And also, these gooner traps are constantly being used at the expense of good gameplay or things that players actually want. I remember playing Apex Legends, and they would spend more time crafting the latest $20 skin than they would fixing crucial bugs that players had complained about for multiple seasons.
Their goal isn't to make sure that the consumer experience is as good as possible. Their goal is to make as much money as possible.
By the way, I'm not going to go over gacha games. I know those have a lot of the mechanics that I'm talking about, but I'm not qualified to talk about them because I don't play those types of games. Nor do I play MMORPGs because of how much time they take, and generally I'm tired of playing games where the game is not the game, it's the leveling system. Like Pokemon, for example. For most people, the game is not the story or the battle system. For most people, the game is leveling up your Pokemon and anticipating what it's going to turn into. A lot of people are addicted to collections and their numbers going higher. Though I have to say, when it comes to games like these, if your goal is to power level your characters so they one-shot everything, then what you're actually saying is that the battle system is not that fun to engage with. Good games are completely ruined when your character is too powerful. Ultimately, you can play what you want, but just be aware of what's going on from the developer's perspective. Though as for me, outside of often having to invest multiple hours into modern games watching cutscenes and reading tutorials before you can get to the part that's fun, I'm just kind of tired of seeing these addiction mechanics being used at the sacrifice of good storytelling and good gameplay. And what I mean by that is that gaming in the 2020s is a lot like if you took the good games from the 1990s and the 2000s and had credit card companies make them, instead of people who are inspired to give the audience a good experience. I know I crashed out about this 2 years ago, but I am still mad about what Square Enix did to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And it's not so much the Sweet Baby Inc. DEI shit that was in the game. It's more so the, hey, let's take this wonderful commentary on environmental destruction and turn it into a dating simulator full of nonsense filler content. And I mean a lot of filler content. I could beat the original game twice just in the time that it took me to finish Rebirth. Who has the time to play this shit? So instead of getting one good game that was well-paced and entertaining throughout, we get two bad games that play on people's addiction to parasocial relationships while destroying all the suspense and mystery of the original by having massive spoilers being thrown in right at the start. Instead of fun and good storytelling, you get wonderful scenes like this.
You've got a great voice.
Oh, you flatter me. I didn't even know I was doing it. You see, this cat I feed sometimes has gone missing. And when I worry, I cannot help but sing.
Delightful. In the new Final Fantasy, you get full-on characters who are added to the story not because they fit well with the narrative, but because Square Enix wants to pad the runtime so they can sell the first 10 hours of a game for $60. Here's a guy who's playing the original for the first time and is shocked that Remake and Rebirth were only disc 1 of 3 of Final Fantasy VII. The new fans are finding out how much Square Enix is milking this franchise instead of just making a good game. This is just a giant middle finger to the audience, and I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one who is unhappy with the direction that Square Enix has taken, ever since Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, left the company. Even their main composer, Uematsu, is saying that the company went to shit afterwards. And what I mean by that is that this is what was created shortly after Sakaguchi left.
All right, chat. It's time to find out if I can beat this boss without pressing a single button. Let's see if I can pull this off. Is that it? Was that it?
If you think that's bad, play Final Fantasy XIII. The company has been struggling ever since Sakaguchi left 20 years ago, and can we see why? Are the good games in the room with us? Does anyone who is not an avid Square Enix fan still talk about Final Fantasy 15? What about 16? It seems like these games are more so selling decently because of brand awareness and not because they're heavy hitters like their predecessors were. These games used to be what everyone was looking forward to, but now indie games are beating them in the cultural narrative.
Anyone who lived through the 1990s, through the FF7, 8, 9, 10 period, they know that Final Fantasy was considered a gold standard in gaming. It was its cutscenes, its cinematics from FF7, 8, 9, 10, these were considered the best in the world. FF7 to 10 were so insanely mainstream successful that the most normal of the most normal people played them.
Also, don't look at how much Elden Ring sold compared to a mainline Final Fantasy. And if your game is so bad that you have to dress your characters in bikinis or stripper outfits just to get people to play.
If there's one major rule in marketing, it's that sex sells.
If you're relying on this for a AAA title just to get people to play, then maybe you should hit the drawing board again. Tighten up that outline. This is not exclusively a Final Fantasy thing, by the way. A lot of games do this. But if you want people to play your game without making it a girlfriend simulator, then maybe don't do a stupid multiverse plot. You already did that with Kingdom Hearts. Fans can go play that game if they want the story to be a confusing mess. Maybe don't take a beloved character and make him super cringe.
What you're about to see is not a mod, it's not a troll. They actually did this.
I appreciate all that you've done for me. Thank you.
We're really gonna miss you, Red.
Oh, don't say that. You're only making this harder.
It is a travesty. The character assassination of the century, what they have done with Red 13. He then makes every cutscene he's in impossible to take seriously.
Also, just to be clear, I'm not saying that characters have to be ugly. I very much hate it when characters are intentionally made to look gross.
Have we gotten so used to unattractive female characters that look like they were generated by an AI trained on solely mugshots that now a woman with a normal, pretty face is considered gooner bait?
Characters should be attractive because it makes you care about them more. Psychologically speaking. Stay mad, feminist. Video games are fantasy, and people don't fantasize about being fat and ugly. However, if the main selling point of the game becomes what scantily dressed waifu are you going to get with instead of the actual gameplay or the story, then you don't really have a game. And a part of the reason why we have so many bad games these days is because companies can still turn a profit by doing this stuff. Though the good news is that there are still games out there that are not trying to get sales by preying on your brain chemistry to get you addicted, instead of genuinely making a good game. Which brings us to 2025's Game of the Year, Expedition 33, a game that was built on less than $10 million and won a ton of awards.
And the Game of the Year is... mon ami Clair-Obscur, Expedition 33!
I want to thank first the incredible team at Soundfall Interactive, and I'll extend a personal thank you to an important man in my life, Mr. Hironobu Sakaguchi, who made me fall in love with games and inspired me to become a game dev.
What an interesting name to mention there. I mean, that much should be obvious. Expedition 33 is basically a Final Fantasy game.
You can easily see that this was inspired by Final Fantasy.
If you don't know anything about Expedition 33, I'll try to be very vague so you can experience the mystery of the game for yourself. But it's basically a turn-based JRPG-style game made by a Western studio, where your goal is to join up with your team of friends to take down a woman called the Paintress. This video is offensive to me. These two don't belong in the same room. I like to think that the entire Expedition 33 team hates everyone behind the FF7 remake, because really, I think Expedition 33 is a giant middle finger to Square Enix, saying that some random French guy and a woman who didn't even play video games before can make a Final Fantasy game better than the makers of Final Fantasy.
And also, I want to extend a thanks to the unsung heroes of this industry, the people who make tutorials on YouTube on how to make a game, because we had no idea how to make a game before, so thank you.
Oh no, they Googled how to be a game designer and beat a AAA company at their own franchise for a fraction of the budget. Not to say that every team member was a complete beginner, but this game is a huge middle finger to Square Enix and also the entire modern video game industry. There's no egregious filler content, no extensive grinding, there are no gooner bait waifu characters, well, except for the author's barely hidden foot fetish.
What are you doing?
I just need the foot. Aha!
The characters actually feel like real people who are put up against harsh circumstances. There's also no microtransactions. There's no stupid season pass DLC tie-in. In fact, after they won Game of the Year, they released an entire DLC patch update for free.
I think that actions are worth more than words. So if you remember, we promised some content a few months ago. So I'm very happy to say that it's releasing now. And you can just go home and play. It's free.
Last, the game doesn't constantly hold your hand and throw a tutorial at you every 5 seconds. Like, that shit is so annoying that a guy named Dexter Manning made a video showing what Zelda the Ocarina of Time would look like as a modern game.
Link, there's a gold skeleton!
I can sense a skeleton nearby.
Make sure to collect that gold skeleton! The more gold skeletons you collect, the more gold skeletons you'll have.
Ah, this gold skeleton will help. Nice.
Link, you've acquired 15 gold skeletons!
Link, be careful! There are enemies! Remember, any enemies that you fight, you can see their information on the start screen!
I wish I had on film how much I laughed my ass off at that video. Stop making games like this. If you have to tutorialize, waypoint, and retard-proof your game this much, then you're just saying that you know it's bad, and you know that players won't want to figure it out for themselves. Good games are supposed to teach you something, not hold your hand the entire time. Hand-holdy games make people stupid, and I'd like to think the most incompetent people you know have game libraries full of content like this. Meanwhile, smart people are choosing content that's inspiring.
For me personally, I find that sometimes seeing things through a same situation but in someone else's life helps me realize certain things about my own life, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes I recognize my own bad behaviors.
That's the main writer for Expedition 33. I'm just going to call her Jennifer because I can't pronounce her last name. But this is exactly what I've said numerous times in my content. Be careful about the stories that you consume because they will have a positive or negative effect on you. Though as for the Zelda parody, personally I think developers make games like that because they don't give a shit about the game and they're just trying to print money from as wide of an audience as possible. They know their games aren't inherently interesting enough to inspire new players to learn how to game, or they're too lazy to develop progressive challenges that will teach players how to play without having everything blatantly explained to them, which is why I can't wait until every one of these big studios doing this shit goes bankrupt. All these big studios who keep selling us bud games, woke storylines, and addiction bait don't have the willpower or inspiration to make something great, so they don't belong in this industry. And to give an example of what it actually takes to make a good game, listen to the writers of Expedition 33. I'll try to do this without spoiling the game, but it was written by Jennifer, however you pronounce that,
Jennifer Svedberg-Yen,
and Guillaume Broche. Here's Jennifer talking about how much effort was put into just naming the main character.
We went through 50 different names for Gustav, yeah. He was Frey, he was Rain, he was like Max for a hot second.
That was just for one character. Even better, here's Guillaume talking about how they kept reworking the first 20 minutes of the game right up to the last moment.
How did you know that this should be the right opening for the game?
So the beginning of the game took quite a bit of trial and error to get really right. Like actually the final form that you see came very, very late in production. It was almost one of the last things.
Again, I don't want to spoil it because the game is still relatively new, but I don't think I have words that are good enough to describe how much I liked the intro of Expedition 33. I think it's probably the best intro to a game that's ever been made. I'm on my second playthrough, and that first scene hits even harder when you know all the character relationships.
If you're gonna give someone flowers, you should probably do it before they wither and die.
What, the flower? Or Sophie?
It's stuff like this that makes all the difference. If you design a world map that's fun to explore, then you don't have to constantly put an arrow in front of players to tell them where to go. And if your characters are interesting, that will push players to complete more of the game to uncover who they are.
Fundamentally, the starting point is that all the characters are generally good people. They are trying to do what they think is the right thing. So that's the part where we really dig into is why do they believe that what they're doing is right?
This is why they don't have to tutorialize every aspect of the game, because creating real characters makes you want to play. A part of the game is trying to discover why everyone thinks they're right. And after you've beaten the game, you can see that in all the fan theories where fans enjoy having complex discussions on the perspectives of each character. The setup to Expedition 33 was so good that I was hell-bent on learning all the mechanics of the game so I could get to the reveal of why the main villain does what she does. And honestly, after experiencing this, It only makes me more mad when I see developers saying they have to rely on anti-consumer practices to fund their games, or when I see constant cookie-cutter trope characters that feel nothing like real people being added to video games not because they make sense in the game's world, but because players have a fetish for that personality archetype. If Expedition 33 were like other modern games, the paintress would not have a complex set of reasons behind her motivations. She would just be evil because she's like a demon lord goth mommy who's also sexually interested in the male protagonist. Oh my god, modern Sephiroth is actually not too far off from being the male version of that description.
You're practically panting. I'm excited. Such a puppy.
I mean, play what you want, I don't care, but it is annoying when so many properties are doing that to sell games that there aren't very many options for people who want to engage with content that's actually good. Or there's the woke end of this where they just insert these poorly written characters and take the story in whatever direction they want to promote the message.
In general, it's very hard when we want something to go a certain way for plot reasons, but the characters don't want to go that way. And it's just so frustrating, and usually have to come back to it and think, okay, is there a way to resolve this through thinking about the character in a different way, or thinking about the circumstances in a different way, or perhaps we have to change the plot point, or we need to add a couple of other steps in the middle to get them to that point.
In a woke game, they'll just do whatever they want, which is why all their stories fall flat and don't make sense. It's not because players don't like the political message. There are actual behind-the-scenes creative choices that they're making that make these games suck. Again, this is to the extent where major studios get beaten by people who have no experience in the medium. The head writer of Expedition 33 had never written for a video game before or even played games.
When you're working on the game, you didn't play video games that much, but now you have.
Yeah, I do play a lot of games these days, and so I very much appreciate the different forms of storytelling.
Again, this should be embarrassing to veterans in this field. They got beaten by someone who doesn't play video games. Well, now she does.
And here you are, not play a single game, but here platinum everything. That's crazy.
For me, I think of it as a way to see all the different areas of a game. And so I can see how the developers are thinking about it.
This is what gamers want. It doesn't matter if you're new. What matters is that you're good at your job, you care about the medium, you care about your fans, and you have a good foundation in the basics of making a creative work.
Are you going a bit further into the writing of the story and then thinking about the hook, or does that come first?
Comes first. Guillaume had come up with the idea of the hook with the paintress. But the question is, who is she? What is she doing? Why is she doing this? And to me, you can't really start writing the story if you don't know the answer to that fundamental question. It's one of my pet peeves is when, some shows, they're great at asking questions, they're terrible at answering them because, they just kind of keep kicking the can down the road. And then season 6 or 7 comes around and it's just like, oh yeah, and this is why. And you're just like, what?
I think she might have been talking about Lost. Does anyone still remember that show? Mystery box writing is cancer. But how many shows are written where it's obvious that nothing past season 1 was planned out? Stranger Things being the more recent example of that. They spent more time writing a coming out scene than figuring out how to end their show properly. This also seems to happen in anime quite frequently. Shows start out with a strong season 1 and then go completely retarded in season 2. I think when writers do that, they don't fundamentally care about the audience. Whereas when it comes to the makers of Expedition 33, you constantly get the sense that they are fed up with the industry preying on the audience through scammy monetization programs, or by treating them like retards by tutorializing every second of the game, or by using their game as a political mouthpiece for their radical politics. This is selfish cannibalization of an industry that other people built. Whereas Expedition has really made a statement exposing how games don't have to do any of the prior bullshit, and games can be made in a way that inspires players and future creators. I mean, it's literally the motto of their game.
For those who come after.
Learn from the ones who came before.
And lay the trail for the ones who come after.
For those who come after.
This is about the next generation, whether it's players who want to have fun or competent creators who want to gift a good experience to the audience. I'm just tired of people taking their money, leaving everything in shambles, and then leaving the mess for someone else to clean up. So many industries are like this, and it's time to get rid of these people. Now, as for the first part of the video, how we engage with media does matter, because a lot of people do have a problem with not being able to pull themselves out of these goon or trance states. Like I said, it's not just porn, but also things like video games and social media, especially when many people are spending so much time engaging with those that they don't put any time into actual relationships. which makes them unsatisfied and depressed. And I will say that a lot of this is not your fault.
Your feed isn't neutral. It's been A/B tested into oblivion to figure out exactly what makes our monkey brains light up with emotion. We're not weak though. Our biology is being exploited. These are not neutral tools. And it's important for us to understand this. They're designed by teams of engineers, neuroscientists, and behavioral psychologists whose entire job it is to extract maximum attention from you. You're not failing at willpower. You're up against a multi-billion-dollar industry that's literally engineered to bypass your prefrontal cortex.
Some very smart people have researched the best possible ways to trap you. You aren't the only one. It's being done to all of us in some way. It's actually very hard in the modern day to avoid the minefield of possible vices that you could obtain. So I think the first step is just to recognize when you're being manipulated. The signs of being caught up in a goon trance are a loss of the sense of time, feeling drained after you engage with the content, constantly chasing but never actually feeling a sense of satisfaction like you do with a good movie or a good video game. And last, your behavior gets more and more extreme. This is how you get situations like this.
Oh my god, I need this one. She f***s her uncle and both of his kids. There's nodding in this one.
That's disgusting.
I know. Who would read that?
Disgusting. And they're selling that shit in a public bookstore. These stories are very much mainstream, and I imagine that the readers initially had quite tame desires, but then over time, as they continuously failed to get the satisfaction that you would get from an actual relationship, their desires got more extreme. Now, if you do notice this behavior, that doesn't mean that you have to make a change right away. I think people only make changes when they can recognize a problem behavior they have, and when they can see how it negatively affects them in a way that they care about, and sometimes that takes a while. But if you do decide that this matters, this is going to sound weird, but the first step to change is to clean your room. I'm not saying this because it's a philosophical metaphor. I'm saying it because tons of people are allergic to dust or mold or their pets and don't realize it. Allergic reactions will give you brain fog, headaches, make you tired all the time, or cause you to need excessive amounts of sleep, which may very well be the actual reason why you don't have the motivation to change yourself. Of course, you can consult a doctor, but you would be surprised how much of a difference vacuuming, washing your bed sheets regularly, changing your air filters, opening windows periodically, investing in an air purifier, and getting your air vents cleaned once every few years will make. Second, this will also sound like nonsense, but do cardio. 1 to 2 miles run or walk 5 days a week will increase your blood flow and give you more energy. I think these two things will probably give you the most benefit for the least amount of work. Outside of that, if you're suffering with these types of addictions, you've likely already searched for solutions on how to stop, so saying obvious stuff like curating your social media feed to not be full of OnlyFans models, I'm guessing is something that you've already heard. So I'll just say this. I do think limiting behavior is a part of it, but I also think the actual solution is to find something that you like better than the gooner content. When it comes to video games, that's pretty easy. People never shut up when it comes to good games, so you know the top games are like Silksong, Wukong, and Expedition 33, and if you pick the correct game, then you should feel a sense of satisfaction out of it during each play session that you will prefer over the addictive gooner content that will throw you into a multi-hour trance. And if you can repeat that over and over in small ways over time, and you start replacing addictive experiences with satisfying ones, then you'll start to get disgusted by things like fast food, gambling, and parasocial relationships. Anyway, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.